So we're live. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decoded by CodeControl, our interactive talk series with people behind the companies building future-proof models for a brave new post-coronavirus world. My name is Logan Ouellette, and I'm a community builder here at CodeControl, and I'll be your host and moderator. So before I introduce our guest for today, I'd just like to say a few quick words about CodeControl. So at CodeControl, we are a future of work company with a community of over 650 top digital freelancers based all across Europe. And our mission is to help professionals to realize fulfilling work. What this means concretely is we match really great freelancers with great projects from great clients, and we take away a lot of the pain away for both stakeholders, let's say. If you want to find out more about us, you can check out codecontrol.io. Or feel free to leave a comment in the chat if you'd like to get in touch, and we'll happily reach out. And speaking of which, feel free to add your questions using the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to them in the Q&A portion after the talk. Great. So I'm going to close that. So now I'd like to introduce our guest. So joining us this week from his current base in Puerto Rico is Jonathan Kalan, co-founder and CEO of Unsettled. Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Logan. Great to be here.
Great. So let's kind of set the stage here. So from what I understand, you spent a lot of your 20s as a digital nomad, doing a lot of traveling for work and such, and you actually met our COO, Margot, in Nairobi. So I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about your experiences during that time and how it led you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember Margot, I think she stayed on my couch back in, 2012 or 13? And has been a great friend ever since. And I've been following CodeControl and what you guys have been doing for a while. So, I think, the way I guess I describe my career is that I've never really had a traditional 9-to-5 job. Most of my life and career experiences have been quite entrepreneurial in nature and pretty unsettled in nature. So, I went to college in Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, which I think is probably one of the best places to learn work-life balance, living right on the beach. I helped found a sustainable music and community festival. After that, I ended up as an intern and then first employee of a media tech startup company. And then really, I think the adventure began at 21 when it was like a couple days after my 21st birthday, I bought a one-way ticket to East Africa to pursue my dream of becoming a photojournalist. And so long story short, after 4 years, I ended up on the front page of the New York Times. I was a columnist for BBC covering innovation, tech, and entrepreneurship across Africa, and really just living extremely nomadically and following my nose. I was traveling constantly, meeting incredible people, and just finding myself inspired by being in movement and being in change. But eventually, at the same time, I think I was traveling constantly, meeting great people, but also realizing that I needed something a little more stable and permanent in terms of community, right? I was looking for those sort of deeper, longer relationships. I was looking for, really being able to share, I think, in that journey of when you're pioneering your own thing or when you're kind of creating your own life and career for yourself. How do you find and cultivate that connection that helps you really evolve and grow? So I was in a bit of transition point after 4 years. I was thinking about those bigger questions, looking for community, and then that eventually led into some of the early experiences that eventually became Unsettled.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so Unsettled, so you are not exactly a travel company, but rather a community, of like-minded people all across the world. Can you tell us a little bit about what was or what is maybe Unsettled's mission? What are the kind of people that join your community, and what kind of value does Unsettled bring to them?
Yeah, it's even me sometimes I have a hard time explaining Unsettled in a very succinct way because it is something quite unique. Like you said, it's not a travel company. It's not a travel agency. It's somewhere between a community, an experience, and a really co-created environment for people. So, I think it's best to start with the people. We are really a home for people who live unconventional lifestyles or are looking at creating an unconventional lifestyle for themselves, right? People who are embracing the unknown, who value meaningful human connection, who are taking risks and doing things differently and kind of living this constant pursuit of growth, meaning, and adventure in sort of all facets of their lives. So on an Unsettled experience, we get entrepreneurs, digital nomads, corporate burnouts, executives from all over. In the past 4 years, we've had about 2,500 people from 80 plus countries and, ages 22 to 75.
Wow.
But it tends to be, I'd say mid-career professional, 35, 38, who's looking to break out of their routine, who's looking to discover a new perspective and also find a new community. And so we started back in 2000, pilots in 2014, but really 2016 is when we founded the company. And, we started with months-long co-working, co-living retreats. These were for people who, lived an independent lifestyle, were looking for that sense of community, and wanted to ultimately co-create an experience, right? Where you weren't just sitting back, in a tour, but you were actively participating in the conversations, in creating the events and experiences. Most of the workshops and things that happen on an Unsettled experience are actually organized by participants who are sharing their knowledge and expertise. Right. And this is both in physical experiences, but also online. So Unsettled ultimately is a community and series of experiences for people who never settle for the status quo, and are looking for that shared community to sort of go through life with and have these experiences with.
Great. Yeah. And so obviously, when it started, a lot of it was focused on these experiences, I guess, and destinations and bringing people together in person. Obviously, we're still in the grips of the coronavirus, even though in many places across the world, they're slowly opening up travel. People are kind of like slowly coming out of this like corona fog, but it's obviously going to be a very long time until we get back into any semblance of normal. I'm curious to know, like, what immediate effect did, the coronavirus, COVID-19 have on your community and your company, and how did you react to it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how we're going to define normal going forward, to be honest. It's such an interesting time, an interesting space. Frankly, it hurt like hell. I mean, overnight, literally 95% of our business collapsed. We had multiple trips going on. I was in Sri Lanka. We were running an alumni summit in Sri Lanka to bring together a lot of our alumni for this unique experience. Another team member was in Spain, another in Bali, and it was just a nightmare. I mean, getting everybody home as borders closed, flights were canceled, but eventually we did. And I think we really took an approach of being extremely transparent and being extremely decisive in our actions. When this started to evolve, let's say in mid-March. We said, okay, let's look at the next month. It's going to be highly unlikely that people are going to want to go to Bali. So cancel all the trips for that month. And then as things started to grow, we recognized that this is going to stick around. And we cannot depend on travel, which has been our core, really our core business and the core thing that allows us to express ourselves and what we do and our experiences, was not going to continue in the same fashion. So, we were decisive around the calls that we made. We had a really generous refund policy and transfer policy. We were super transparent about our processes and our thinking. And, I think throughout all of it, we really had incredible support from our community, right? We had customers who simply said, keep my money. I'll use it at some point, at a trip in the future. We had alumni who were offering to donate to support us and our team as they knew that, we were not going to be able to really function. Right. And I think all of that was just because over the years we worked really hard to build a community of trust, right? Not just a company. I mean, there's a million different travel companies out there, but to have really an experience grounded in community, given the amount of time people spend together, a month living together, working together, or even 2 weeks, or even a week on a sailboat, which feels like a month in normal time. Right. It's just enabled us in many ways to continue to adapt and say that, yes, we can't travel now, but there will be a time when we can travel, and we're super excited for when that is. I wish we could predict, but I mean, at this point, who knows, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. And I guess kind of like focusing on that aspect of, so your co-founder, Michael, wrote this really great blog post where he described your company as Ikigai, which is what helped you kind of like innovate through this crisis and kind of create these new community products, which we'll talk about in a moment. I wonder if you can describe for us what exactly is an Ikigai, What was your process of finding your ikigai, and how did it lead to these new innovations that came about?
Yeah, actually, now that I think of, we have this wonderful poll function. I was like, I should have said, who knows what an ikigai is. It would be fun to see.
Okay.
So, there are a number of places around the world that are called blue zones, right? And it's where people live happier and are healthier and live longer than anywhere else in the world. I think there's, one in a part of Sicily. There's a couple others around the world if you Google blue zones, but one of them is Okinawa, Japan. And what's interesting is that this is where people are obviously living longer. You have more octogenarians, people over 100 than anywhere else in the world as a percentage of the population. And so a lot of people started to study this and understand, okay, what is it about how these people are living or the way in which they're living that is leading them to be happier and healthier and live longer. And so as they dug into this, what they realized and learned was that in Japanese, and specifically in Okinawa, there's this kind of, I'd call it a philosophy, an approach to life that is called ikigai, right? And literally it means what gets you up in the morning, or what is your reason for being. In the West, we'd probably define this as purpose. But that puts a lot of pressure on it, and people don't look at it as purpose, right? There's not this quest of what is my ikigai? How do I find it? It's something that's kind of natural. It's as simple as in the morning you wake up and you say, hey, but how you doing? How's your ikigai? It's how's your sort of reason for being. And so there's a couple great books on this, and what people have done with this is taken this ikigai concept and built it into a tool that helps you overlap and discover the overlaps between what you love, what you can get paid for, what you're good at, and what the world needs, right? In these sort of 4 concentric circles, and you work towards the middle. And so ultimately it's become an exercise for helping people understand, what is it that really motivates you and what is it that inspires you. And in the early days of Unsettled, Michael and I came together in his small apartment in Bogota, Colombia, and really dug into that question, right? Why are we starting a company? What is it that matters to us? What's important to us? We didn't start with a business plan. We didn't start with this big grand vision. We said, why do we want to start a company? What do we think the world needs? What are we good at? What do we enjoy? And so we took a very values-driven approach to founding Unsettled, and one that we would hope would carry us on, throughout multiple iterations of what a product could be, what an experience could be, what the company could be. And so our ikigai, the reason Unsettled exists, is ultimately to inspire the lifelong pursuit of growth, meaning, and adventure in people's lives, right? And up until this point, we've mostly inspired growth, meaning, and adventure through creating physical experiences. But as you can imagine, that can be tweaked and changed into many, many different ways of doing that. And so I can get into kind of how we apply that now, or I can pause.
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess before we get into, how the Ikigai helped you to create these new products, I'm kind of curious. Maybe, do you think that this kind of going through this process of the Ikigai, is this something that you would recommend to maybe like other companies as well, even more than just people to do on a personal basis?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I think, especially in co-founder relationships, especially in companies, one of our experiences, our lifestyle incubator, it's one of the exercises that we do. And, there's many different ways to do exercises like this. But I think at the end of the day, it's understanding how to align your values with either your career trajectory or with your company's trajectory, right? Because you can't be at odds with your company, right? If your company is doing something you don't believe in, you're not excited about, you're not passionate about, then what is it ultimately serving? Maybe it's serving the idea of just making a lot of money. Cool, that's great if that's your objective. Your Ikigai could be to make a ton of money, right? Your Ikigai could be evil, right? It could be like, my Ikigai is to destroy the world. It's like, cool, if that's true to you, wonderful. That's not mine. So I think these processes are essential for companies. And I think a lot of companies don't dig into the why questions, the value questions enough at an early stage to give them the tools to make decisions going forward. And we always, every single month as a company, and any major decision that we face, have to check in and say, does this align with our vision? Does this align with our values? Does this align with our Ikigai? And sometimes we make decisions that are not profitable as a result of that, but it keeps us going and excited, and it keeps the values of the company true, and thereby, speaking to community earlier, it keeps a cohesive community because we're not just flip-flopping and, you know, chasing the money every day. We're doing something we believe in.
Absolutely. And is this something that could be sort of like self-directed, or is it something that you would usually recommend it facilitated by someone, or could people just find the resources and kind of do it on their own, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I would always say, come join us for an experience around it, but entirely, you know, it is something you can download, you can get offline. There's a book by Hector Garcia, who we had the privilege of meeting when we were in Japan. He did a workshop for us when we had a trip there. So yeah, there's a lot of tools and resources. And again, it's just one interesting way of looking at the intersections. And you can do, you know, we've done an Ikigai for business, right? You can do an Ikigai for yourself. You can do an Ikigai for your company. So, you know, you could take, you know, your company and say, like, what do you guys get paid for? What are you good at? What do you love? What does the world need? And I'm sure I hope you land somewhere in the middle with what you've created so far.
Great, cool. Yeah, so I guess maybe getting a little bit back more on topic, you mentioned the lifestyle incubator. So from what I understand, this is something that you launched kind of shortly before coronavirus hit. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the lifestyle incubator and what that's all about.
Yeah, so I think we were lucky in many regards, but you know, as a friend of mine who has a book coming out next week actually on serendipity, is that, you know, there's good luck and there's smart luck, and I think we had smart luck in this case, in that, you know, we recognize that travel and group travel experiences can be unpredictable, and so we recognize the value of a lot of the content and the workshops and the things that we created for a community of people who, in many times, were in transition or thinking about transition. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, were working independently and just wanted to constantly challenge themselves of, how am I growing? Where am I going? You know, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a remote worker, like, I feel like you're always asking those questions to figure out, how do I grow and how do I evolve? Because you don't have the same infrastructure that you do in a company setting, in a you know, corporate ladder. And so there's a lot more ambiguity and a lot more uncertainty. Yep. So we took all of kind of our knowledge, our expertise, and built out a 4-week online program. We call it a virtual retreat because it's extremely interactive. We get about 30 to 40 professionals from all over the world who are all asking that question, what next? You know, what am I doing next? Is it a career change? Is it a lifestyle change? How do I rebalance? And designed out this really, you know, experimental experience in the beginning back in November, launched it, and we've been running it, I guess, for the past 5 months. We've run 4 experiences, and ultimately it's, you know, live workshops, it's, you know, take-home assignments, it's a really interactive discussions, conversations, breakout rooms, a 24/7, you know, asynchronous Slack where people are having conversations and chatting with each other about, you know, what they're learning, and it's really designed for both kind of personal and professional growth and orientation, applying a lot of our favorite principles of sailing and metaphors of sailing, because we love sailing. It's part how we started the company. So
cool.
So yeah, so we launched that just in time in November, and it's actually been kind of the thing that we've been consistent throughout. And we just doubled down. You know, as soon as we knew we couldn't travel, we said, let's shift, you know, all our focus into growing this, into evolving this. And last month we had about 40 people, and probably have about 40 next month as well.
Okay, fantastic. And before we get into the Mastermind community, which is this other kind of innovation that came out of this, I wanted to kind of like touch on maybe, so, you know, community building in the digital sphere, you know, is obviously a little bit different than doing it in person. I'm curious to know what kind of, you mentioned Slack, for example, what other kind of tools do you have to build these kind of like connections and really build this sense of community for your Unsettled community?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I can speak to some of the tools, and I can also speak to sort of the approach of creating digital community.
Yeah.
You know, I think first off is that, you know, you can't just create community.
Yep.
Right. If your goal is to simply create community, you're going to fail.
100%.
We've always been of a belief that great products create great community. Mm-hmm. People need to actively buy into something, right? An experience, a set of beliefs, a product, and then come together around that before you can have a community. So it has to be grounded. You know, how we look at it is, if you want to create a great product and thus, you know, a great community around that, it comes to deeply analyzing and understanding the value that you're creating for people. Right? We're obsessed with value at Unsettled. You know, how do we create experiences that people value? How do we understand what value people are getting out of it? Is it personal? Is it professional? So we tend to ask that why question a million times and understand, you know, why would somebody join this? What can they get out of it? What can they give? So when you begin to move that into a physical sphere, you know, where you're not saying, hey, we're offering a product that you go to Bali for a month that I'm clearly paying for this product, but getting a great community because it's curated. In the digital space, the first question to ask is, why do these people want to get together in the first place? Right? What's the value in bringing these people together, and break it down? Yeah. Once you have that value, so for us, it's, we believe that people are looking for growth, meaning, and adventure in their lives. Then break it down and say, how do we, you as leaders of community, deliver that value? And then what value comes from the community actually connecting and delivering to each other? Because they're going to have two frames, right? You're going to have what you can create and what they're going to create themselves. So once you, I think, answer that value question, it's about structure. Community without guidelines, without people who can lead by example and strong systems in place to control momentum, right? That's going to fail. And so we, in our experience, we had all of that. We had an active community. We had an experience and product that people were familiar with. We had a level of trust inherently built in. And so for us, it was ultimately the question of what can we actually offer in the digital space that's going to get people to engage? What are the kinds of things that we can do that are actually going to provide value? And I think, it was the first month we did it well, I'll hold on the Mastermind. But that's sort of how we went about it. And, Slack, Zoom, those are the main things, right? You've got your asynchronous communication tool, and then you've got your live event tool. And as long as you know how to kind of function and structure those for meaningful interaction, then, you can create something out of it.
Absolutely. Great. And then, yeah, you mentioned it again. So let's talk a little bit about Mastermind. So this was kind of like the other innovation that was maybe directly a result of, the coronavirus and everything kind of really completely changing. So tell us about the Mastermind community.
Yeah. So, when Corona hit, we said, okay, we've got the Lifestyle Incubator. We're going to continue that. It's a great program. But we also have 2,500 alumni who are now locked up in their houses and, not only miss traveling, but kind of miss that interaction with a diverse group of people that is what you get out of an Unsettled experience. So we literally, it was throwing spaghetti at the wall the first month. But we had all the ingredients for the pasta in place, right, so to speak. We knew how to run digital experiences from doing the virtual retreat. We knew our community was looking for interaction and was looking for a sense of community. And we had planned to design kind of a membership approach for something similar, but never pulled the trigger because other things just kind of kept coming up. So ultimately, when we stepped back and said, what are we designing for here? What is this Mastermind going to be about? We settled on kind of three things. One is that we want to get people connected, right? Have them meet people they've never met before and have meaningful conversations. We want to keep them growing and learning, right? This is a time when I think people are stepping back and thinking about what new skills can I learn? What kind of ideas can I dig into? What can I really use to grow myself during this period? And then the third was designing it around momentum and accountability. So with the projects that they're working on, the things that they're doing, how can we help them keep each other accountable? And how can we help them, get that momentum or keep that momentum? Right. And so our hypothesis was, or our question was, what happens when you bring together a diverse community from around the world who share a similar set of values, with the idea of having them connect, learn, and contribute to each other's lives. And so the first month was, again, an experiment, but it was awesome. We had 240 people. Wow. We used Slack. We used Zoom. We had, I think, over 20 community-led workshops and a number of guest speakers and conversations. Nice. We had a NASA engineer who worked on the Apollo 13 rescue mission. We had workshops on astrology, personal branding, Latin dance, poetry, podcasting, speed friending sessions, virtual co-working sessions. And so we just tried a lot of things, and then we got a lot of feedback. And then the next month, we kind of condensed it even more to really focus on the things that added clear value to people's lives. The virtual co-working sessions, the connection sessions, the speed friending sessions, the community-led workshops where you learn something random that you never thought about, like astrology or your Enneagram. And so it was really a collaborative experience, but it was a lot of fun, and it's something we're going to be taking forward in a very different way over the next couple of months. Great.
And I guess maybe a question that probably a lot of people listening are thinking about is, how do you join this Mastermind community? What kind of people is it for? Is there some kind of like application process or?
Yep, we've got a super simple application on the site. I think it's just beunsettled.co/mastermind. We're wrapping up June right now. May.
May.
Corona time. we're probably not going to hold one in June because we're going to go through a major redesign and turn this into something bigger.
Sure.
But at least if people sign up there, they can kind of be on the list for how we're going to go forward with it. And it's really, honestly, anybody who's looking for growth, connection, learning, and to meet an interesting community of people who are, again, inspired, have that pursuit of growth, meaning, and adventure, right? So whether you're a remote worker, you're an independent worker, you're an entrepreneur, even if you're just somebody who is looking for an online community of people to share skills with, learn from, help each other, it's all about values to us. Doesn't matter your age or what you do. It's, are you coming at this with a mindset of, I want to contribute to a community, not just take from a community. I want to share my expertise and knowledge as much as I want to learn from others. So that's sort of been at the heart of Unsettled from the beginning, and is definitely a key part of how we run online experiences.
Good, great. And before I go to the next question, I just want to remind our viewers that you can, of course, ask your questions for Jonathan. You can use the Ask the Question feature at the bottom. It's looking a little empty right now, so we'd be happy to have your questions so we can add those on a little bit later. So the next question. So obviously, eventually, this whole crisis is going to end. It's not going to be the same normal. It'll be a new normal, of course. Do you think that Unsettled will go back to destination travel experiences?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think one that we're thinking a lot through now. We're definitely going to go back to travel and experiences. At the core of what we do, it's what we love. I mean, I think we're going to approach it in balance. I mean, right now is a period to say, what can we grow and really scale and do well in the virtual space? And so I think as we grow those experiences and as we innovate and try new things and see what works, I can imagine maybe the future is, 50% of our business is online and 50% is, travel experiences. I think it's hard to tell. We don't know how people are going to come back and travel, how they're going to want to travel, where they're going to want to go. I think the core of what we do, whether it's, 1 week sailing experiences, whether it's 2 weeks in Tuscany or 1 month in Bali, those will continue. I think we're probably just going to go at it from a very measured pace starting off. We were running 3 to 5 experiences every month before Corona hit. I think it'll probably be a lot smaller than that and then grow. And it's also a chance to tweak. What do we want to change? What kind of new experiences do we want to launch? And I think everybody, who has a company right now in travel or otherwise is kind of thinking, well, how do I do things differently? How do I do it better? What did I learn from not doing it for 4 months? And we take a step back. So I think we're just going through that process on our own.
Okay. And actually, how big is your core team? Like, do you have quite a big core team? Is it very kind of like centralized, or is it more kind of like decentralized, where you have kind of different trips going on simultaneously, or is it generally the whole community all together at once? What is kind of like the layout like that?
Yeah, it's changed a lot over the years for sure. At one point we had 25 people. At other points we had 6 people. At other points we had 15. It depends on the number of trips we're running, where we are. From the beginning, we've always been a virtual team. I mean, there's people I've been working with for 3 years that I've never met in person. So we have been entirely remote. We've got people in Bangkok, in Argentina, in Bali, in the US. And so we've always just been distributed. It's worked for us. And the joy is that we can meet up on experiences and kind of have that shared experience together as a community, as a culture. We tend to run trips simultaneously. So we're having, 3 trips, 4 trips going on at a time. That's how it's been over the past couple of years. And then, now going forward, obviously we had to slim down quite a bit during Corona and kind of limit it to, the essential things that we're running now. But as soon as we start to pick up travel, a lot of our team is flexible and freelance and we kind of work in different capacities and have people in most of our destinations who live there full time who then, join an experience. I see somebody has met Lala. She's wonderful. She's our VP of experience. So
okay, wonderful.
In the chat.
Very cool. Great. So what would you say have been, some of your main learnings, I guess, over these last 2 months in terms of, pivoting from, offline to fully online, at least for now, to, potentially it becoming an important part of your business in the future?
Yeah, I think, number one is in a time of crisis being decisive. Our number one priority, and I think this should be the number one priority of any company in a crisis is, take care of your customers, take care of your team, and take care of your company. really reacting quickly and not dragging our feet. There's other companies that we've seen that drag their feet and gotten a lot of trouble for it. And it's just being decisive. And that's a hard thing to do when you have so much uncertainty. Our tagline is embrace the unknown. So as comfortable as we are with uncertainty and as comfortable as we are not knowing, sometimes you just have to make a bold move and say, you know what, we're shutting it down for now and stepping back and doing some other things. So I'd say being decisive. Number two for us is that we have, I think, really reevaluated how we deliver value. For the past, it's really all been, again, physical and moving into the digital, but it's forced us to really think about what does Unsettle as a brand, as a company, as a team, what value have we delivered and what value can we deliver? Looking at everybody who's on our current team right now, what are their skill sets? How can they be adapted in different ways? We had one of our experienced leaders, Clavi, she's from Argentina. She was running a trip in Bali, and literally like a week after she got back from Bali and was still in quarantine in a hotel in Buenos Aires, was running the Mastermind. She had never run a virtual experience for us. And so understanding team strengths and skills and learning how to adapt really quickly, and I think reshuffle very quickly based off of people's strengths is something that we've learned how to do and is really valuable. And then third is, taking the long approach, right? I mean, some companies here may have paused and stopped, and that's not a bad thing. If you can afford it, just stepping back and pressing pause and saying, we either can't do anything now or we can't plan. Let's take a step back and use this time to evaluate and reassess to become stronger when things do pick up in the economy and in travel. So I think those are some of the things that we've learned. We've gotten a lot better as a team. We've gotten a lot more cohesive. We've gotten a lot more, I think, stronger communications and teamwork based off of just having to innovate really quickly and build new systems very quickly. So those are, I think, a couple of things that we've learned from this.
Very good. All very good insights. Thank you. Cool. So I think now we can maybe get to some questions from the audience. So I have a first one here from Tristan. He asked, where do you currently get your daily inspiration from?
Great question, Tristan. In part, I'm still figuring that out, to be honest. I'm on a journey myself of thinking about, having worked remotely for so long, having recently moved to Puerto Rico and kind of getting established here. I've felt like actually that I'm on an active quest to find more ways to keep myself inspired on a daily basis, especially when I'm not traveling. It's been quite hard. I used to be a journalist, as I said, so I used to look at news, but that's really uninspiring lately. And so, not there. For me lately, it's actually been reaching out to people. I started kind of a founders group of 10, 15 different entrepreneurs that I know, and just having conversations around our daily challenges, our personal relationships to our businesses, to our lives. And so it's really a lot of people, bringing people back into my life that I think I haven't communicated with or haven't been in touch with as much, and using this time to kind of get inspiration from that. I'm not somebody who kind of browses YouTube videos and kind of looks online for a lot of that stuff. So it really is connections with people and learning from people.
For sure.
Although there is a hilarious video that I found on YouTube today about a guy who set up a obstacle course for squirrels in his backyard. He was a former NASA scientist. And I'm going to say
that today as well on my Facebook or something. Yeah.
It was
so good.
That was inspiring. It's like, when you have the time, you can engineer anything and have a lot of fun with it. And it was cool to see his approach. So that was inspiring.
Very good. Cool. We have a question from Katya. Hi from Malta. What are the key differences between the Mastermind program and the Lifestyle Incubator, actually?
Yeah. Great question. So the Lifestyle Incubator is a very structured 4-week program. So there is, a curriculum, there are specific workshops, there are specific live sessions, and it's got a real specific goal in mind, right? Which is helping you develop clarity around what steps you want to take next, and kind of answering some of those deep questions around, how do I want to redesign my life or my career? So it is much more a course, if we can call it that. Whereas the Mastermind is really, I'd say it's almost like a university campus, where you've got all these people, you've got different, let's call them lectures or workshops that you can dip into and learn from. You've got, 200, 300 people that you can interact with and have conversations with. You've got structures to provide that interaction. So it's much more of a a open, flexible community experience and a learning experience that is more serendipitous in nature than it is a program or course where you're looking to kind of have a specific outcome at the end, tailored towards your life and career. So I hope that helps answer it.
Good. Thank you, Katya, for the question. And another one from Tristan, a bit more personal. You seem like quite a fearless, brave guy. What kind of fears do you have in your business and in your personal life?
Great question. I am pretty fearless. I like to say that I'm a student of the unknown, or somebody said that about me once and it resonated. I thrive in uncertainty. I've covered terrorist attacks and revolutions and all sorts of things as a journalist. And so in business, I think two fears, probably more, but off the top of my head. One is that, everything that we've created with Unsettled doesn't reach its full potential. And by that, I mean, we've got this incredible community of 2,500 people at this point around the world who've had an experience with us. We built a brand that has incredible values and I think resonates with a lot of people, given where the world is right now and given, I think, how we look at our lives as a constant time of evolution and growth. And so I think one fear is that doesn't kind of continue in some way, shape, or form. It's not so much a company failing, but it's almost like the community failing in a sense where, even if Unsettled ceases to exist tomorrow, God forbid, we've still made incredible connections where people have started companies together. People have made partnerships together. I met my fiance through Unsettled, and that's happened many times. So, I think there's a sense of that will always continue, but, how does it reach its full potential? So I think that's one. The other fear, I guess it's of getting bored. I'm a restless soul, and I think there's always a constant fear, at least personally, of getting bored with something, of feeling that I have not, that I've kind of done all that I can, that there's not more value that I can add, and then I get bored and kind of don't know what to do, which is a bad state for me to be in. Thankfully, I'm not bored. There's plenty to do, but I think that's always a fear as an entrepreneur, and as a business owner, of what happens if you do get bored of what you're doing, or you're not adapting and trying new things, which is in some ways why we've always baked growth and our personal growth into the company. We don't do things that we're not passionate about, that aren't exciting to us. And frankly, I can't think of anything that I would do on my own that wouldn't fit into the Unsettled brand in many ways. And I think it's similar to my co-founder, Michael.
Yeah, you really live the Unsettled brand, I guess.
Yeah.
Great. So I have a question from Claire. Do you think when you do start to travel again, or when we start to travel again, I guess we in general, will do it in a different way? Yes, it's a great question. And I think there was a really interesting report by, I want to say it was Cantor and somebody else, that kind of looked at different modes of how we might travel going forward based on how the pandemic affects both consumer habits, travel habits, and the industry as a whole. Yeah. I think there's always going to be people who have a much larger appetite for risk. And I think they're going to probably enjoy much more with less crowds, with less reservations, with lower prices. I think those who are willing to take a risk, I think they're going to find a really interesting new world to travel in. I'm not going to say whether that's better or worse. It totally depends on obviously how the pandemic plays out and when a vaccine comes. But until we get a vaccine, I think the concerns around travel are going to force hospitality and travel companies to think really differently around what's their value proposition. Are they selling safety? Are they saying security? How are they addressing families and people who have concerns around young or older travelers? So I think, unfortunately, it may lead to a lot less social interaction when traveling because of people trying to create bubbles as they travel, or trying to kind of keep people separated. And I think you're going to miss a lot. Like you can't come to Puerto Rico and go to La Placita, which is this big space that everybody goes to on Friday and Saturday night, because it would be a Corona cesspool. And so I think there are going to be some things that just will have to be experienced a different way. But I think we're just going to have to sort of wait and see. But I mean, a lot of travel companies and hospitality companies are probably going to go under. I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation in the industry. I think there's going to be a shift in just
what people look for when they travel. I think people are going to be going much more for nature-driven experiences. I think in the next 6 months, regional travel, in the U.S., road trips and going, campsites, etc., is going to pick up a lot. So I think you're going to see that stuff playing out, and how it kind of affects businesses and consumers. I think we'll sort of have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I think that what's really going to be sad about, when things do finally kick up again is that, or for the next little while at least, we're kind of missing these serendipitous encounters that you just, you can't really like replicate online, when you run into someone at the airport, or like you said, like in Puerto Rico, like on the in the plaza. That's, I think, one of the saddest things is,
And I just wonder, part of me is worried that just a lot of the, how will the small businesses, the mom and pop, boutique hostels or hotels or providers, or, how those really unique experiences, how is it going to shake out for them? Is it really going to be that, just the major players in the travel space can weather this storm, and that you're going to end up having less options for smaller, more unique kind of offbeat experiences? Or the opposite could happen, that actually you see a lot more people pioneering and doing new things in sort of smaller ways. But I hope that's the case. I hope that it kind of spurs an innovation in different experiences. But it's, depending on how long it goes on, I think a lot of people in the travel sector are just going to have to, unfortunately, find other jobs, other spaces, other sectors.
Yeah, we'll see. And then last audience question: highlight and low light from the last 5 years.
Oof, I'm terrible with those questions. The highs and lows of the past 5 years. I think the highlight. Okay, the highlight was, I'm gonna say it was 2014, so 6 years. I'm gonna cheat, but I think it was the first time I had skippered a sailboat by myself, which was the kind of precursor to the first Unsettled experience, and just sitting on this 52-foot yacht as a skipper with 10 crew and a fleet of like 4 other boats with 40 people, all of whom were kind of friends or friends of friends, and just waking up one morning going like, this is my life, that I had somehow been fortunate enough to be able to create that life and be able to have that kind of experience, and also provide that experience for others. I think that was probably one of the highest points of that kind of self-confidence and that just experience. And so that was definitely a high. And also that was kind of the first Unsettled trip, so it led to all the highs that have come Unsettled. Low, oh man, I'm really not good with lows. I feel like I just skip over them, and I don't even think about them. So yeah, I think maybe there's a low point when, one of many times that Unsettled was at a very, very difficult point and didn't know if it would survive. As any startup, we have those. But yeah, nothing too low, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a regular part of the entrepreneurial journey, like the highs and lows, but sometimes we do like to paper them over in our memories. I get that.
It comes with the territory. I mean, it's sort of like they're lows, but they're expected lows, and nothing has gotten lower than I think I had expected in signing up for this.
Cool. Well, actually, I have maybe one final, maybe fun question from my side. Once you get the opportunity to, and it's safe to do so again, where's the first place that you want to travel anywhere in the world after this is all done?
So I already have an Airbnb booked there. Pending we can get there. It's Slovenia. Slovenia. It is. So my great grandparents on one side are from there.
Okay.
It's a beautiful country. It is just a very, I think, special place for me. Like, incredible mountains, wonderful people, small size city in Ljubljana. It's got everything, and it's really accessible. So I've spent the past couple months on an island, most of that unable to go in the water because of mandatory lockdown here. So I'm ready, I think, for some mountains and, that kind of environment. So hopefully July and August, I will be in Slovenia. If not, somewhere else in the mountains. Unknown.
Oh, knock on wood. Cool. Well, so that's all the questions we have from the audience, all the questions we have from my side. I guess before we close it off, do you have any maybe last message you want to share with the audience? Yeah,
I think, if the topic is, pivoting and pivoting in a dramatic way, which I think there's probably a lot of people here who have had to pivot in some way, shape, or form. It's that the way I think and we at Unsettled have tended to view it is that there's no wrong way, right? There's no right or wrong in this environment. In most cases, right? I mean, yes, there's things you could do wrong, but when it comes to deciding, how you're changing your business or how you're changing your career or how you're pivoting what you do, it's really a series of experiments. And that, every little experiment can be tested and stopped. Every single an example is if we ran the Mastermind and it was terrible, then we would have said, cool, that was a fun experiment. Let's try something else next month. So, looking at pivot is not some massive, we have to change everything and we have to change it now. It really is just a series of incremental experiments that take what you do and apply it into different realms or different formats or forms, and just taking that mindset to, in many ways, ease the pressure, right? And as long as you can still survive, then you're on a good path, and hopefully you go from survival to growth relatively quickly. But yeah, I think that's something that we've learned and something I always keep in the back of my head is as we're thinking through decisions that do have implications on the company, the community, and really what we do on a daily basis.
Good. No, very good advice. Thank you. So actually, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me today and having this chat. I think we had a lot of really great insights, and it was really cool to know a little bit more about your own journey and how Unsettled and what Unsettled is going to be in the future. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy over there in Puerto Rico, and hopefully we will all be able to travel again soon.
I hope so as well. No, thanks a lot. And thanks everybody for listening, for the great questions. It was a lot of fun. Have a great rest of the day and good luck out there.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.